The tall glass building stood like a lighthouse in the busy downtown area. On the top floor, a man stared out the window, watching the city below. This was Andrew Taylor, the CEO of Summit Technologies. At 42, he had built this company from a small startup to one of the fastest-growing tech firms in Atlanta. But right now, success felt hollow. Andrew loosened his tie and looked at the reports on his desk. The numbers weren't adding up, not in the way that mattered. Sure, profits were good, but people were leaving. Too many people. Good people who had been with the company for years. 3 department heads in 6 months, Andrew muttered, flipping through the exit interviews. They all said similar things. Toxic environment, not the same company I joined. Values only exist on paper. These words hurt. As one of the few black executives in the tech industry, Andrew had fought hard to create a workplace where everyone could thrive. A place built on respect, honesty, and real inclusion, not just fancy words in a mission statement. His phone buzzed. It was Ray, his oldest friend and now head of HR. "Tell me you've got solutions," Andrew said, answering the call. "I might," Ray replied, "but you're not gonna like it." An hour later, Ray sat across from Andrew, laying out a wild idea. "You want me to do what?" Andrew asked, thinking he'd misheard. "Go undercover. Work in your own company. See what's really happening when the boss isn't around," Ray explained, leaning forward. "Look, something's broken in our culture, and fancy surveys aren't showing us the truth." Andrew laughed, but Ray didn't join in. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Ray said. "The people at the top are showing you what you want to see. The only way to know what's really happening is to experience it yourself." Andrew walked back to the window, thinking. He had built this company from nothing, working 18-hour days, risking everything. Summit Technologies was supposed to be different from the places where he'd been overlooked, underestimated, and pushed aside. "Even if I wanted to," Andrew said, "how would it work?" "Everyone knows who I am." Ray smiled. "Not everyone. We've hired over 100 people in the last year. Many have never met you in person. With some small changes to your appearance and using your middle name, you could pass as a new hire." Andrew shook his head, but a part of him was already considering it. Yesterday, he'd overheard 2 young employees in the elevator. When they noticed him, they stopped talking and stared at their phones. What had they been saying? What was really happening in his company? That night, Andrew couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his father, who had worked at the same factory for 30 years. "A boss who doesn't know what's happening on the floor isn't really in charge," his dad used to say. The next morning, Andrew called Ray. "If we do this, only you and the board chair can know," he said. "No one else." 2 weeks later, a man named Alex Wilson showed up for his first day as a customer support rep at Summit Technologies. With a beard, glasses, and casual clothes instead of his usual tailored suits, Alex didn't look much like the CEO, whose picture hung in the lobby. As he sat through orientation with 5 other nervous new hires, Andrew felt strange. It had been years since he'd been on this side of the table, years since he'd felt that mix of hope and worry that comes with starting a new job. The HR presenter clicked through slides about company policies, benefits, and expectations. Andrew waited for the part about Summit's values, the principles he'd written himself and believed in deeply. But it never came. Instead, the presenter rushed through the final slides. "Hit your numbers, don't rock the boat, and you'll do fine here," she said with a tight smile. "Any questions?" Andrew raised his hand, heart pounding slightly. "What about the company values? The mission statement?" The presenter looked annoyed. "That's mostly for the website and investors," she said with a dismissive wave. "Let's talk about what really matters, your quotas." And just like that, in his first hour undercover, Andrew realized this journey was going to be much worse than he'd imagined. The first day as Alex Wilson left Andrew with a pit in his stomach. He'd spent years building Summit Technologies, and in just one morning, he'd seen how far it had fallen from his vision. But this was just the beginning. After orientation, a team lead named Vicky showed the new hires to their desks in the customer support department. The space was gray and windowless, packed with rows of small cubicles. Nothing like the collaborative workspace the design team had promised when they remodeled last year. "Each of you gets a headset, a computer, and exactly 30 minutes for lunch," Vicky said, her voice flat like she'd given this speech 100 times. Breaks are 10 minutes twice a day. The system tracks when you log in and out, so don't even think about cheating. Andrew glanced around at the other new hires. Their excited faces from earlier now showed worry. What about training? A young woman asked. Vicky laughed. You had orientation, didn't you? Listen, the scripts are in the system. Follow them word for word. Your calls will be recorded and scored. Low scores mean meetings with me, and trust me, nobody wants that. Andrew's desk was in the back corner. His computer looked at least 5 years old, nothing like the top-of-the-line equipment Summit was supposed to provide for all employees. Hey, new guy, whispered the man in the next cubicle. He had kind eyes and gray at his temples. I'm Dean. Been here 2 years. Don't worry, I'll help you out. Thanks, Andrew replied, feeling grateful. I'm Alex. Word of advice, Alex, Dean said, leaning closer. Vicky watches everything. Don't spend too long on calls, don't offer extras the script doesn't mention, and never ever transfer a customer to management without her okay. Andrew's first call came in before he had time to ask why. An elderly woman needed help setting up her new tablet. The script on his screen offered only basic troubleshooting, but Andrew knew the product inside out. He had overseen its development. Sir, I'm still confused, the woman said after Andrew followed the script exactly. My grandson bought this for my birthday, and I just want to use it to see pictures of my great-grandchildren. Andrew looked at the call timer on his screen. 7 minutes already. The target resolution time was 5. He felt Vicky watching from across the room. Let me walk you through it step by step, Andrew said, ignoring the script and the timer. He spent the next 15 minutes helping the woman, making sure she understood each step. Thank you so much, young man, she said finally. You're an angel. I'll tell everyone about your wonderful company. As soon as the call ended, Vicky appeared at his desk. That was 17 minutes, she said, crossing her arms. We aim for 5, never more than 8. What were you thinking? I was helping her, Andrew replied, surprised by the harshness in her tone. She needed. What she needed doesn't matter, Vicky cut in. What matters are the metrics. We have 50 calls waiting. Every minute you waste chatting means our numbers drop. But she left happy, Andrew argued. She said she'd recommend us to others. Vicky rolled her eyes. Customer satisfaction doesn't pay the bills. Volume does. One more call like that, and you'll be written up. As she walked away, Dean gave Andrew a sympathetic look. Told you, he whispered. Through the rest of the day, Andrew watched his colleagues rush through calls, cutting customers off, and sometimes even hanging up on difficult ones. When someone complained, Vicky would say, that's how things work now. The higher-ups only care about numbers. The higher-ups, that meant him. During his break, Andrew escaped the bathroom and stared at his disguised face in the mirror. The company he'd built was unrecognizable. When had this happened? How had he missed it? His phone buzzed with a text from Ray. How's it going? Andrew typed back, worse than we thought, much worse. By the end of day 1, Andrew had a headache and a growing list of problems to fix. But as he looked around at his tired colleagues, forcing fake smiles through call after call, he knew one thing for sure. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Andrew showed up for his second day with a plan. He needed to understand exactly how bad things had gotten, and more importantly, who was responsible. Overnight, he'd tossed and turned, thinking about everything he'd seen. How had his company changed so much without him noticing? Morning, Alex, Dean said as Andrew dropped into his chair. Ready for another fun day in paradise. Before Andrew could answer, Vicky clapped her hands for attention. Listen up, everyone. Regional Director is visiting tomorrow. That means today we need record numbers. No long calls, no bathroom breaks unless absolutely necessary, and definitely no transfers to tech support. A woman a few desks over raised her hand. But what if the customer really needs tech support? Vicky's smile turned cold. Tell them to try turning it off and on again. If they're still having problems, offer to send them our troubleshooting guide. Just don't transfer them. Our department loses points for every transfer. Andrew's headset barely touched his ears before the first call came in. A business owner furious because the software he'd purchased wasn't working, costing him thousands in lost sales. I've called 3 times already, The man fumed. Each time I get transferred and have to explain everything again. I need this fixed today. Andrew checked the customer's file. Sure enough, there were 3 previous calls, each under 2 minutes. No wonder the man was angry. No one had actually helped him. Sir, I completely understand your frustration, Andrew said, ignoring the script on his screen. Let me handle this personally. He spent the next 20 minutes working through the problem, discovering a bug that should have been caught before release. The business owner calmed down as Andrew worked with him. Thank you, the man said finally. You're the first person who actually seemed to care. I was about to demand a refund and switch companies. I'm glad we could fix it, Andrew replied, feeling both proud and disturbed. How many customers had they lost because of rushed service? As he ended the call, he noticed Vicky storming toward him. Conference room. Now, she snapped. In the small meeting room, Vicky didn't offer Andrew a seat. 23 minutes, she said, jabbing a finger at a printout. And I see you promised to report that bug to development. Who gave you permission to do that? The customer had a legitimate problem. I don't care if his building was on fire. We have procedures. You don't make promises. You don't spend 20 minutes on one call. And you definitely don't tell customers about bugs in our system. Andrew felt his temper rising but kept his voice calm. The man was about to take his business elsewhere. Vicky laughed. So, one customer? We have thousands. The executives only care about call volume, not keeping every whiner happy. Is that what they tell you? Andrew asked carefully. That's what they show us, Vicky said, throwing the paper on the table. Every bonus, every promotion goes to people with the best metrics. Quality doesn't matter anymore. After the scolding, Andrew returned to his desk to find Dion looking worried. You okay? Dion asked. Conference room talks are never good. I'm fine, Andrew said. Does she treat everyone like this? Dion glanced around before whispering, it's worse for some folks. See Leo over there? Been here 5 years, knows everything about our products. Vicky's written her up 3 times for spending too much time with Spanish-speaking customers. Andrew looked where Dion pointed. An older woman was patiently explaining something to a customer. And Tony by the water cooler asked for time off for his kid's hospital stay. Vicky told him he wasn't a team player. Throughout the day, Andrew noticed more patterns. Younger employees got easier calls. Older workers and people of color handled the complicated problems but received no recognition, and anyone who questioned Vicky's methods became a target. During lunch, Andrew ate alone, typing notes on his phone. The problems weren't just about cutting corners for metrics. There was something deeper, something rotten in how people were treated. His phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Ready to come back to your nice office yet? Andrew stared at the message for a long moment before typing, not even close. I need to see the sales department next. Something tells me customer support is just the beginning. After a week in customer support, Andrew arranged his transfer to the sales department. Ray helped with the paperwork, making sure Alex Wilson moved smoothly between departments without raising questions. You look terrible, Ray said when they met secretly for coffee over the weekend. Is it that bad? Andrew rubbed his tired eyes. The beard he'd grown for his disguise was starting to itch, and he missed his comfortable office. But what he'd seen so far made any discomfort worth it. Worse, he replied. They're treating customers like numbers and employees like machines, and from what I've gathered, sales might be even worse. Monday morning found Andrew in a bright open floor on the 12th floor. Unlike the cramped customer support area, the sales department had modern furniture, large windows, and a fully stocked break room. But the friendly environment didn't last long. Gather round, everyone, called a tall man in an expensive suit, new blood today. The sales team formed a circle, eyeing Andrew with mixed curiosity and suspicion. I'm Tom Phillips, sales director, the man announced, slapping Andrew on the back too hard. And this is our new junior sales rep, Alex. Show him how we do things around here, but remember, he's coming for your clients. The team laughed, but their eyes stayed cold. Tom pointed to an empty desk in the corner. That's yours. Commission structures in your welcome packet. Top performers get bonuses and prime leads. Bottom performers. He made a cutting motion across his throat, generating more uncomfortable laughter. A friendly-looking woman stopped by Andrew's desk as everyone dispersed. "I'm Lynn," she said quietly. "Stick with me today, and I'll help you figure things out." Throughout the morning, Andrew shadowed Lynn on calls. Unlike customer support's strict scripts, sales reps could say almost anything to close a deal. And they did. "Tell them whatever they want to hear," Lynn explained between calls. "Tom doesn't care how you get the signature, just that you get it." Around noon, Tom called everyone for a team meeting in the conference room. "Sales are down this quarter," he announced, pacing like a caged animal. "The board is breathing down my neck, and you know what that means." "Pressure rolls downhill," someone muttered. "Exactly," Tom said, pointing at the man who'd spoken. "So here's what we're going to do. Starting today, we're rolling out our new pricing strategy. Old clients will see a 15% increase next billing cycle." Andrew couldn't stay quiet. Won't they just cancel their contracts? The room went silent. Tom stared at Andrew like he'd suggested burning down the building. "That's why we're not telling them up front," Tom explained slowly, as if talking to a child. "The increase will be listed as a service enhancement fee in the fine print. By the time they notice, they'll be locked in for another year." "Isn't that misleading?" Andrew asked. Tom's face darkened. "It's business. If you want to hold hands and sing songs, go back to customer support." After the meeting, Lynn pulled Andrew aside. "Be careful around Tom," she warned. "He doesn't like being questioned, especially by new people." Throughout the afternoon, Andrew watched in growing dismay as salespeople misled customers about features, promised impossible delivery dates, and buried extra fees in complicated contracts. Worst of all was overhearing Tom on the phone with another director. "The CEO's latest diversity push is killing us," Tom complained. "We need hunters, not social justice warriors." "But what does a guy like Taylor know about real sales anyway? He just got lucky with his tech idea. Without people like me making the real money, he'd still be pitching to investors." By the end of the day, Andrew had filled pages of notes in his phone. The problems weren't just isolated to one department or one bad manager. Something had infected the entire culture of his company. In the elevator down to the parking garage, Andrew stood next to two salespeople who didn't know he could hear them through their loud conversation. "Another quarter, another trick to squeeze customers," one said. "What choice do we have?" The other replied, "It's lie or get fired these days." Andrew leaned against the elevator wall, feeling sick. How many people had he unknowingly hurt by losing touch with his own company? And how many more would suffer if he didn't fix this soon? For his final week undercover, Andrew headed to the company warehouse. After seeing the problems in customer support and sales, he needed to understand if the issues reached every corner of his business. The warehouse sat 30 minutes outside the city. Unlike the sleek main office, this building was all-function, concrete floors, high ceilings, and rows of shelves stacked with products. Andrew arrived early, dressed in work boots and jeans, ready for physical labor. "You the new guy?" asked a stocky man with a clipboard. He didn't wait for Andrew to answer. "I'm Pete, warehouse manager. Follow me." Pete walked fast, pointing at different sections without slowing down. "Receiving there, packing there, shipping over there. You'll start in packing. 10-hour shifts, 2 15-minute breaks, 30 minutes for lunch. Any questions?" "What about safety training?" Andrew asked, noticing workers lifting heavy boxes without proper equipment. Pete snorted. "We don't have time for that corporate nonsense. You'll figure it out as you go." He handed Andrew a box cutter. "Don't cut yourself." Andrew's station partner was a quiet man named Raj, who had worked at Summit for 8 years. "You're lucky," Raj whispered as they packed orders. "Last new guy got stuck with the heavy lifting crew. 2 of them hurt their backs last month." "Were they given medical leave?" Andrew asked. Raj laughed softly. "Pete marked them as personal days so it wouldn't count as workplace injuries. Company has a bonus system for managers with few safety incidents." Throughout the morning, Andrew noticed broken guardrails, missing safety equipment, and employees taking dangerous shortcuts to meet quotas. When a forklift nearly hit a worker because its backup alarm wasn't working, Andrew approached Pete. "That forklift isn't safe," he said. "Someone could get seriously hurt." Pete glanced up from his phone. "Write it on the maintenance list. We'll get to it eventually." "But people are using it right now," Andrew pressed. "Listen, new guy," Pete said, lowering his voice. "We have shipping targets. Miss those targets and corporate breathes down my neck. So unless that forklift is actually on fire, it stays in operation." After lunch, a young worker named Dev slipped on a spill no one had cleaned up. He landed hard, clutching his wrist in pain. "I think it's broken," someone said as people gathered around. Pete pushed through the crowd. "Back to work, everyone. Dev, come with me to fill out some paperwork." Andor followed at a distance, watching Pete take Dev to a small office. "Sign here," Pete was saying when Andor peeked through the cracked door. "It says you were running even though you've been told not to run in the warehouse." "But I wasn't running," Dev protested, still holding his wrist. "I slipped on that oil leak by the loading dock." Pete's voice hardened. "Look, you have two choices. Sign this form saying it was your fault, get some ice on that wrist, and keep your job. Or insist it was a workplace safety issue, file an official report, and find yourself with suddenly reduced hours. Your choice." Andor felt sick watching Dev reluctantly sign the paper with his good hand. Back on the floor, Andor noticed another pattern. The workers assigned to the heaviest lifting and most dangerous tasks were mostly people of color, while lighter, safer jobs went to others. "That's how Pete runs things," explained an older worker named Lewis when Andor mentioned it. "Been that way since he started. Anyone who complains suddenly gets the worst shifts or finds their hours cut." By day's end, Andor had seen enough. In the parking lot, he sat in his car making detailed notes and taking deep breaths to calm his anger. His once proud company had become unrecognizable, a place where managers bullied workers, safety regulations were ignored, and discrimination happened in plain sight. As he drove back to the city, Andor made a decision. The undercover operation was over. He had all the evidence he needed. Now it was time to clean house, starting from the top. The drive back to his real life felt longer than the 3 miles it actually was. Andor parked in his reserved spot in the executive garage for the first time in 3 weeks. He sat there for a moment, looking at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The fake beard would come off tonight. The regular clothes would be replaced by his suits, but he wouldn't be the same person who had started this journey. "How'd the last day go?" Ray asked, meeting him at the service entrance as planned. "I've seen enough," Andor replied, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Call an emergency executive meeting for tomorrow morning. Every department head. No excuses." That night, Andor barely slept. He reviewed his notes, organized photos he'd secretly taken, and prepared what he would say. By morning, his disguise was gone, but the fire in his eyes remained. The executive conference room filled slowly. 12 people took their seats, chatting about weekend plans and quarterly reports. None of them knew what was coming. When Andor walked in, the room fell silent. His face showed none of the friendly charm they were used to. 3 weeks ago, Andor began without preamble, "I disappeared from this office. Some of you might have noticed. Most of you were probably too busy to care." Confused glances circled the table. "I spent those 3 weeks working in our company, not as the CEO, but as a regular employee named Alex Wilson." Andor clicked a button, and a photo of him in his disguise appeared on the screen. Gasps filled the room. The chief financial officer dropped his pen. "I worked in customer support, where I lend our reps are forced to rush customers off the phone instead of solving problems." Andor clicked to the next slide, a screenshot of the metrics dashboard. "I worked in sales, where I watched our team lie to customers and hide fees in fine print." Another click, another damning screenshot. "And I worked in our warehouse, where safety violations are covered up and workers are intimidated into silence." The room remained stunned as Andor methodically went through each department, showing evidence of everything he'd witnessed. Some executives looked shocked. Others looked away, unable to meet his gaze. But the most disturbing part, Andor continued, his voice now dangerously quiet, was discovering who's responsible for turning my company into this place I don't even recognize anymore. He clicked to a slide with 3 photos, Vicky from customer support, Tom from sales, and Pete from the warehouse. These managers have created cultures of fear, discrimination, and dishonesty in their departments. They've bullied employees, violated labor laws, and betrayed everything this company stands for. The chief operating officer cleared his throat. And while this is concerning, these are also our highest performing managers in terms of numbers. The shareholders. The shareholders invested in my vision, Andrew cut him off, not in a company that cheats customers and abuses workers. He placed 3 folders on the table. Inside is detailed documentation of every violation I witnessed. Effective immediately, Vicky Brooks, Tom Phillips, and Pete Miller are terminated. You can't just fire our top managers without, the COO began. I just did, Andrew interrupted, and that's just the start. He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. Some of you knew what was happening. Some encouraged it. Others looked the way. Either way, you all failed this company and its people. Andrew stood up straight, his decision made. Half of you won't have jobs by the end of the week. The other half have one chance to help me rebuild this company the right way. The room erupted in protests and questions, but Andrew raised his hand for silence. You have a choice to make right now. Stand with me to fix what's broken or clean out your office today. There is no middle ground anymore. As the executives looked at each other in shock, Ray stood up and moved to Andrew's side of the table. I'm with you, he said simply. One by one, 4 other executives joined them. The rest remained seated, their futures decided. The next few weeks at Summit Technologies were like nothing the company had ever seen before. The firing of 3 top managers sent shockwaves through every department. Rumors spread fast. The CEO had gone undercover, had seen everything, and was cleaning house from top to bottom. Andrew didn't hide the truth. Instead, he called an all-hands meeting in the company cafeteria. Hundreds of employees packed in, standing against walls and sitting on tables. The room buzzed with nervous energy. By now, you've heard the stories. Andrew began, standing on a small platform so everyone could see him. And yes, they're true. For 3 weeks, I worked alongside many of you as Alex Wilson. Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. Some people who had worked directly with Alex looked stunned. What I saw broke my heart. Andrew continued, his voice strong but honest. This company has lost its way. The values we started with, respect, honesty, excellence, were being ignored. And that ends today. Andrew explained the changes already underway. New leadership in customer support, sales, and the warehouse, a complete review of all policies, an anonymous reporting system for workplace issues, and a commitment to rehire people who had been unfairly pushed out. But rebuilding takes more than firing bad managers, he said. It means listening to the people who do the actual work every day. He announced new employee committees with real power to shape company policies. He promised that bonuses would now reward quality and teamwork, not just numbers. And he committed to regular town halls where anyone could ask him questions directly. Most importantly, Andrew said, I want to apologize. As CEO, everything that happened was ultimately my responsibility. I got too comfortable in my office, too distant from the real work of this company. That will never happen again. In the weeks that followed, Andrew was everywhere, sitting with customer support reps, joining sales calls, helping in the warehouse. No job was beneath him, no concern too small to address. Not everyone believed things would really change. Dean from customer support approached Andrew in the break room one afternoon. People are saying this is just for show, Dean said bluntly. That in a month, everything will go back to how it was. I understand the doubt, Andrew replied. Trust is earned. All I can ask is that you judge me by what I do, not what I say. 3 months after his undercover journey, the first signs of real change appeared. Customer complaints dropped by 30%. Employee turnover fell even more dramatically. The warehouse reported 0 safety incidents for the first time in years. 6 months in, Andrew invited everyone to the company parking lot for a surprise announcement. A large object stood covered by a tarp. When I started this company, Andrew said to the gathered crowd, I promised we would never become just another heartless corporation. Somewhere along the way, we lost that promise, but you've all helped bring it back. He pulled away the tarp to reveal a new company sign. Below the Summit Technologies logo were the words, Our people, our customers, our community. This isn't just a sign, Andrew explained. It's our new bonus structure. 1/3 based on how we treat each other, 1/3 on how we serve customers, and 1/3 on how we help our community. Back in his office later that day, Andrew looked out at the city below. His desk phone rang, a customer calling with a problem. Instead of transferring the call, he picked it up himself. "This is Andrew Taylor," he said. "How can I help you today?" When the call ended, he noticed Ray standing in the doorway, smiling. "You know you have people for that, right?" Ray said. "You're the CEO." Andrew smiled back. "That's exactly why I need to do it. The day I'm too important to talk to our customers or our employees is the day I need to go undercover again." Ray laughed, but they both knew Andrew meant every word. Some lessons change you forever.